Welcome to Property Elevator. It's lovely having you.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Tell us a little bit about the deal then you've brought today.
My deal is a former bank in Stoke-on-Trent. I have planning permission to convert it into 9 flats.
Lovely.
The deal is actually looking at financing the conversion costs.
Okay, so you're looking for someone to back the whole 100%?
Or a short-term loan of money.
Okay, lovely. Well, best of luck.
Mike is coming in. He has purchased, I think, this bank in Stoke. Unfortunately, there's no money left in it by the looks of things. It looks like the safe is empty. Shall we see what Mike's got to say? Hi, Mike. Thank you very much for coming to see us today. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you bought for us to fund.
Well, I'm Mike Brown. I'm in my 60s. I'm an engineer by background. I sort of got into property as an accident probably 10, 15 years ago, and I had a couple of properties, and that's been it pretty much until recently. I went to an auction and I bought a property, and that's why I'm here today to discuss that. I've always worked full time. I had my own business in the noughties. I sold up after about 10 years. And I had a sum of money as a result of that. I then bought a flat which my daughter lived in while she was at university. The long and the short of it was then I had some spare money in 2018, and I went to some auctions, and then I came across the bank in Stoke-on-Trent and fell in love with it. I applied for planning permission to convert it into flats. So I had an architect draw up some plans. And despite it being in a conservation area, we did get planning permission to convert into 9 flats.
Yep.
I was expecting maybe 200,000 sort of conversion costs. Actually, I think the lowest was 340 and the highest was over £500,000. Property values in that area are not that high. However, the 340 option does make it a goer, I think.
And in terms of the money you've put in, you've obviously bought it. Did you buy it cash or did you?
Yes, so I bought it with cash.
Okay.
Typically, people in Guildford are renting from private landlords.
Yes.
However, the university, like other universities in the country, has recognised this and is building lots of its own properties.
Yeah, student accommodation, yeah.
And of course, not many students are now going to university because of the coronavirus, so they're studying from home and things like that. So it's not a good time to be selling a flat. So I've decided to keep that flat for the moment.
I think that's probably very wise.
Wait a year or two.
Yeah.
Just briefly describe what a 1-bed looks like for us there, please, in terms of...
So if you imagine the bank, it's on 4 floors. First floor is the grand sort of entrance, so quite high ceilings.
The banking hall, in other words.
The banking hall, yes. And that's got the most constraints because it's got the strong room in it. And so there are just 2 flats in the downstairs. They are the bigger flats. So there's a 2-bedroom there and there's a 1-bedroom, but with a separate lounge and kitchen diner as well.
What size are they?
50 square metres. The downstairs ones are larger. Yeah,
The
1
ground
bedroom
floor will
ones.
probably be about, I'd guess, if the whole building's 5,000 square feet, the ground floor is probably 1,500 square feet, so they'll be quite good size.
So they're more like 600 or 700 square feet, I think. So the quotes include replacing all the windows on the first, second and the top floor. They are fairly expensive, but it's in that style because it is in a conservation area. The ground floor is secondary double glazing is going to be added.
Is it listed itself?
No.
It's not? Okay, interesting. Is there the opportunity to segregate off a separate lounge? And what I'm thinking is, can these 1-beds be used as 2-bed apartments? You know, is it big enough to have a 15 to 20 square metre?
It's quite difficult because there are some pretty solid walls in there.
Yeah.
And we're actually constrained by the walls rather than... yeah.
Okay.
That's the difficulty working with an existing building, isn't it? You've got to work with what you've got, and there's so many beautiful features, as we can see, that it would be a shame to, or it'd be nice to keep as much of that as possible.
I've previously had properties that have been quite expensive, if you like, and rented out to just a couple of tenants. And I've always felt there's a higher risk with that. I quite like the idea of having 9 smaller properties, and if I get one bad tenant, then there's less risk in terms of income.
And is your plan with this to keep hold of these and have it as rental income?
At the moment. The state of play isn't great in the rental.
Fluid, I think the word
Yes.
is. Fluid. You're fluid.
Yes.
You're fluid, Mike.
You own it cash, 340 to 500 to do the conversion, hopefully the lower end of that.
Yes, what I would say is I do have a listed building that we live in, and I have put 90,000 aside for development work on that, which we're going to do next year. So I could borrow that, and so I'm only actually after possibly 250, unless your interest rates are so good. No,
Right.
but 250 it would be sufficient.
So you've got here 470, including
That's what I've already
the
paid.
purchase cost.
So I've got 90 already tucked away.
But the 470 is what you expect it to cost in total, is that right?
That's what I'm
including your
expect-
initial purchase.
Yes.
So obviously, if it sells for the lower end of your estimates, there's very little in it.
Yeah. I don't see it as a money maker selling it, and I'm looking really to rent it.
All right. Well, we're looking for money makers.
I
So I
thought it
suppose
was
my next question is, what do you want from us?
Right. I thought it was also there was an option of providing short-term finance.
I think
from you.
the idea is ideally that there is an exit strategy, and of course there could be one here if you said, well, you have it equally or whatever, put some money up and so on. So I think let's just park that for the moment. Let's just see what Ranjan thinks of it as well, and me, and then we can talk round what you're saying.
I love bank buildings, done a few of these. I got really excited when I saw Stoke. I thought it might be Stoke Newington, but then I saw it was Stoke-on-Trent, which is a little bit further north.
Too far for you, Ranjan.
than an area I'm more familiar with. I'm always get scared of low value areas, and I start to look at the cost of the flat as being not that much more than the cost of actually sort of doing the conversion works. You mentioned you pull these comparables off a BBC website. So they're probably comparables, I guess, of 1 and 2 bedroom flats which are in adjacent residential streets as opposed to in a high street without much action. They would command a bit of a discount. Would that be fair to say?
I think that as a flats go, offers a lot more than more conventional blocks that typically have high service charges and that sort of thing.
Whoever maintains if you're keeping it and you want to keep it as rental, the exit is by revaluation. So the value of the end flats is important to exit out the investors and keep it as a rental.
Yes.
So the value of those flats is important. And if you are keeping the freehold and managing it, older buildings will cost a lot more to generally upkeep.
Yes.
Because all those lovely turrets and things, they cost money when you get
yes.
birds nesting up there and all the rest
yes.
of it, and you've got to deal with, which you don't have to deal with on modern buildings. What frightens me is the build cost. The cheapest cost, in my experience, when you get these tenders, is that they tend to go upward. They tend to go in cheap to kind of get the deal, or to get the contract, and then you get this extra and that extra, and it soon magnifies. So I'd be scared of that.
Right.
So for that reason, it's probably not for me. But I will share one tip with you, because I've done a few of these banks. I hope you've probably still got time to make a claim for capital allowances, because they're embedded with capital allowances. We can chip in on the purchase price, which might be something you want to Google, because all those vaults and things massively lessen the purchase price when you claim that back.
Right, okay.
So you might have just made yourself a bit of money today.
Have you looked at just sticking it back in the auctions? You've got planning on it now.
Oh, yes.
You looked at that
yes, part of it is I have fallen in love with the building.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm not necessarily doing it for the money.
Mike, let me tell you something. Sorry to jump in. Do never fall in love. Only person to fall in love with is your wife. Do not fall in love with a building, because all that will do is disappoint you over the years. This is business. If you're coming in here, you want money offers. I don't want to hear, and no one else does probably, that you fall in love with it, because you'll make personal decisions instead of business decisions. In retrospect, would you have bought that at auction now?
Yeah, I think so.
You are. You're happy with your purchase?
Yes.
Okay. It isn't for me because there's not enough money in it.
Yep.
However, I might have some good news for you. If one of these other guys around here doesn't want to invest in it, the government are making grants available in these types of town centres. And it may be, just maybe, and I'm not guaranteeing anything, but it may be, if you look into that via your local authority, you might find there possibly could be some grants available to convert it into residential. And you need some help. Because with due respect, I don't believe you'll get it done for 340, 350. I think it'll be more like the upper end in the end. And when you've got one builder at 150 grand less than another, I'm always very suspicious. It isn't for me, and I do wish you all the very best. But if these other guys aren't interested, please do look into a potential of grants in towns and city centres. The government have made, I think, £1 billion available for that.
Yeah, that's a good tip, thank you.
Helen.
I can completely see why you've fallen in love with the building. A friend of mine did one of these in Bristol, and it was a good job I wasn't invested actually, because I fell in love with the building and followed this much more avidly than perhaps I should have done. But I wasn't invested, so that was all fine. So I get it completely. John is right, though, that you would need to be careful that compromises or can compromise some of your decisions. I agree with what the guys have said also on the cost of this, and I would certainly, I'd have the 500 in your mind from the start. I really would. And, you know, the numbers, even when we're looking at the lower end of 340, if the values come in at the lower end that you've given here, that's a gross profit there of 45k, so it's a 9% return on GDV. That's very, very tight at the best of times. That's tight in a rising market. If costs do come in nearer the 500, that wipes out your lowest and your medium. It wipes out all your profit in both of those scenarios. So you really do need to achieve your high end kind of prices, which I don't know how realistic that is. It is tight on the numbers. It's normally the type of projects that I would be involved with, but the numbers just are very tight on this. I prefer to do these type of projects with somebody that's done it before, so they know the things that catch you out. So it's beautiful. I think you're going to end up with, you know, beautiful project and beautiful flats at the end of it, but you're going to have to be really, really tight on those costs and manage that exceptionally well.
And of course you are able to fund it because you own the building, so you should be able to fund it with a bank. Is that something you've looked at all, Mike?
I haven't looked at getting a bank to loan on that yet, no, because I assume it's...
The fact that you own it, cash,
yes.
Quite often a lender will give you all of the build cost. What might restrict you in this case is that the build cost is substantially greater than the value of the asset, and that's not usually the case. But you would be able to borrow something, almost definitely, to contribute toward getting it done. I would have thought it's a newly converted bank on the high street that probably, and I don't know this for sure, and therefore I can't really take an educated guess on it, but I would have thought it would be toward the upper end of 1 and 2 bedroom flats in Tunstall, because they're newly converted and it's in a nice looking building and obviously a decent location being the high street. But I don't know that because I don't know the area in depth. But you should because you own there.
Yes.
So some stronger comparables may have changed it. But again, I suppose just out of interest, Mike, what were you looking for from the Angels today?
Potentially some short-term finance for say 6 months, or potentially a share of the development and then the final. But I do appreciate the second option is perhaps a little bit more difficult to organise and to...
Yeah, I think for me, similar to what Helen mentioned, the margin's just a bit thin for it to work. I think on both options, for me personally.
I think since we're on relationship advice, there's a very thin line between love and hate. And I think this could soon turn into hate when you get into this project. I noticed the auction board is in a northern auction, you know, quite frankly, for some reason or other, commercial to residential conversions are massively popular right now. Stick this in a London auction, get out and do a better deal.
Get it sold.
This isn't a money maker, and the love you have for it will turn into hate in no time at all.
There'll be a divorce involved at some point.
You don't say that.
God forbid, that's even more expensive.
Were there any contentious planning conditions, you know, precluding any future permitted development or any parking requirement, anything like that? Is there any parking with it actually?
No. It is the high street, and that's why the high street's dying there, because there is no parking.
Are we ready to show our hands?
I think most of us have showed ours. I think it's just.
I think so.
I think it's just you, Nicholas.
I mean,
left.
where I'm at, I actually think there's an opportunity to make some money by tweaking the layout. That's a big potential because I've not seen your floor plans.
Right.
But I think I might be able to add some value and get you to the top end of that valuation.
Interesting.
With some interesting tweaks to the floor plan. I actually would concur with the other guys. I think the best thing would be to prep it for auction, having done that work, having done your comparables, and selling it on. But you need some expertise to get you to that auction stage to prepare it. So I'm not sure what I'm offering you, but I'm offering to work with you for a share of any profit over your minimum number. I guess my offer is my time to get you prepared for a resale, as long as that takes, maybe some planning tweaks to add the value, and then put it into sale.
Whatever Mike paid for it, anything over and above that figure, when you resell it together, you will go.
We would go 50-50 on that, having created more value through tweaking what you've got there with planning and presentation, and no cost to you.
This is
without building it,
and without building
just
it,
reworking the planning.
Yes,
maximising the value and sharing that profit.
It's a little bit like going to marriage counselling rather than a divorce.
Part of today was also to get your views on this, because I'm very new to this game.
Okay, well, you've had a
I-
lot of
I
advice
do
in a very
appreciate
short
that. I've
period
had a
of
lot of
time
it- a
today.
lot
I
of
know it takes
advice.
a bit of.
Yes, so I do appreciate your views, even though they weren't necessarily positive for me, but they, you know.
Well, they are positive, Mike. They're very positive.
Yes.
You know, I can also help with the funding in terms of getting the right land and development owned funding, and I can top that up if needed. You've got some money to top it up. So I think funding, if we want to build it, it can be built, just whether it should be built or not, if it's going to make any money.
Yep.
Or if it's just maximising what we've already got. Bit of time from me. You've got the asset already. Let's try and
Nicholas,
maximise the sale.
What you really need to know, presumably, is what Mike paid for it, so you can then decide whether or not you both are worth. It's worth.
I paid
doing.
110 for it.
So we could share any uplift from 110, having reworked the planning.
Yep.
And maximise the potential uplift from now.
Yes. So.
Would you like to know more about me?
Yeah, is that?
Do you know what?
Is that now, or is this for discussion later?
No, that's an offer.
You need an answer.
Need an answer
I have to make a decision.
That's how it goes. Yep.
The deal is we work together, put it in the auction, whatever the cost, whatever we get net from the auction after the auction costs. We take 110. I get 110.
You get the first 110 out,
and then the rest of it we split between us.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's
okay.
Well done.
Fantastic.
Yeah. That's a great deal.
Virtual handshake.
So, Mike, we got a deal.
Yes, it went very well.
Congratulations. I was trying to listen in. I could hear a lot of negotiation going on.
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
I was asking initially for finance, but to a certain extent, really, what I was looking to do is to run it past them and the experts and get their view on how good they felt the project was.
The deal was, right,
yes.
Okay.
I think realistically they've suggested that it isn't as good as I maybe believed. Maybe I'd fallen in love with the building too much.
Okay, so there's a little bit of an emotional investment in there as well.
Yes, I think so. But Nicholas was quite keen that we work together and maybe look at an exit strategy for me to actually sell the property, and then we'll share any additional profit that's made out of it.
Okay, excellent. So how do you feel about that? Are you happy?
Yes, no, I'm happy. Yes,
Good.
it's gone well.
Good, and then you get the experience that Nick has as well. So
yes, certainly.
Really good deal. Congratulations.